Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Good News Now. I'm Jay Williams. We're with
Robert Hoff.
And here we are with one of the instructors for Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling. We're here to educate you about Paradise Alley Wrestling and the great positive things they do here in East Haven. This is WWE legend Mario Mancini.
I don't know about that one, but how you guys doing?
We're doing great.
That's great. It's always a pleasure to come here on ETV. It's always an honor to come here because my wrestling school is in East Haven, 30 seconds from here. My home is actually 30 seconds from here, so I'm East Haven all the way in.
That's it. There. Yes, that you are.
I am.
Right.
I came to East Haven in April of 2016, and I'm never leaving.
Right. So we know you from our other show, The Squared Circle, but some viewers out there might not know what is Paradise Alley, what do they do?
Well, it's important for me to come on here in this kind of form because, as you say, Hollywood, it's typically I'm on wrestling shows,
Right.
and not everybody's interested in professional wrestling, but they're interested in East Haven,
Right.
and what's going on in East Haven. So, Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling opened up in October 2015. Basically, it's a wrestling school on Co Avenue. Kind of right behind our Oasis Diner there in those overhead garages. And, I got a hold of Big Steve Tracy actually got a hold of me, and, it was a pretty rough spot in my life at that time. And he said, hey, why don't we open up a wrestling school? Mm-hmm. And I got a hold of Paul Roma, and he said, yeah, let's do it. And then a couple weeks after, Paul Perez came walking through the door. I've known Perez since '87, so all four of us got together and opened it up. And about a year and a half after that, we saw how enthusiastic Sergeant Murray was, so we made him an operating partner. Mm-hmm. But when we first opened up, it was first designed to be a wrestling school and a wrestling promotion. Basically, the promotion eventually to pay the bills, because the rent's not free, the gas isn't free, the electric isn't. Well, what had happened was we ran a few shows, and then Michael D'Angelo passed away in an auto accident, and
Right.
One of the people there at Paradise Alley, one of the students said, we should run a show for him. I said, well, tell me a little about the kid, because I never.
Because this individual was friends with Michael D'Angelo.
Yeah, I never met Michael D'Angelo, and then he started telling me about Michael D'Angelo, and then I started talking to other people, dropping his name to other people, and this kid was like the best kid on the face of the earth. He was just like the salt of the earth. Everybody loved this kid. Mm-hmm. And then I went on the internet and saw that he was a tri-captain at East Haven High, and he was at WestCon. He already had pictures of himself in his baseball uniform. I talked to Big Steve, and Big Steve said I'm very close, dear personal friends with his father, and that's all he had to say. So we put our first fundraiser on, which was called Diesel Mania, and thereafter, my phone started ringing for Mission 22 to raise money for our war veterans to help them for the prevention of suicide.
Right.
Then, autism, the animal shelters, you name it. Mm-hmm. This show we were supposed to run a couple of weeks ago that got snowed out, Jingle Brawl, was specifically for Joseph Malillo Middle School to raise money for the middle school. That's been rescheduled for January 27th. So what Paradise Alley ends up doing in East Haven, and East Haven needs to know this, is we're a fundraising wrestling company, basically.
Right.
and there's nothing wrong with that, where mainly other wrestling promotions go out there strictly for profit. I mean, they advertise a show, they get their talent, they sell their tickets, they sell their concessions, and they get their take at the end of the night and they walk away. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, because you need that kind of money bank, that backing of that money to run another show and get better talent. And that's what wrestling promotion is all about. But we decided to charge a modest fee, and who I call the client, whether it be autism or who we raised $7,850 for.
Right. There's a whole story behind that. So
well, yeah. So you know, what I call the client, they actually sit there. Like the last show we ran was for Camp Rising Sun, and you know, when the doors opened for the show, Melissa sat right next to me, and she goes, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "I want you to collect your money." And I ripped the tickets as people bought them. She took the money, and after the second match, I said, "Okay, you know, I don't think anybody else is going to come in." I started counting up the stubs, you know, and she started counting out the money. The money should match the stubs, and you know, they walk away with the money they made, and it's just that easy. And, of course, I get a letter from them, or I take the money, deposit it in the Paradise Alley account, and cut them a check. But if they take the cash that night, they send me a letter stating how much they made, because Paradise Alley is a legitimate company. We're LLC'd, and we have to file taxes.
Of course.
So, you know, anybody that calls me, I mean, the ball's been dropped, but I actually had a woman in Bridgeport whose 3-year-old child needs some rare operation, and she's trying to raise money. And I told her, I said, if you can get the Sheehan Center in Bridgeport, and we'll run a show, and you know, you can have all the ticket money and the concessions, and you know, put as much money toward it as possible. We've run shows for the Middletown baseball team, the Face Off Hockey Club in East Haven here, the East Haven hockey team. So, you know, we're going to run a show in May again for Mission 22. So, Paradise Alley Professional Wrestling, for the people of East Haven, they need to know that, you know, it's a fundraising wrestling company. Our shows are rated G.
Right.
There's no chairs.
No.
99.9% of the time, there's no chairs. 100% of the time, there's no vulgarity. There's no vulgar gestures.
No.
There's no blood. You have to know that Paul Roma, who had a tremendously successful wrestling career, he runs the production of the wrestling. So he sets up the matches. He says who goes what and where goes where, and he lays down the rules of the dressing room and the wrestling etiquette themselves. You know, and our explanation to our guys, whether they're new or old, is look. Myself, Roma, Big Steve Tracy, and Paul Perez, we were all in the WWF, which is now the WWE, and we were there for quite some time. And we watched how Vince McMahon conducted his staff and conducted his dressing room, and we just try to mirror that like he did. So it's very professional, and it's family friendly. And at the same time, if you have a charity you'd like to raise money for, we're more than happy to help you out. Again, like you said, we had some problems in the past.
Right.
One problem, which if people watch the news for about 6 weeks, it was on constantly about the gentleman that came in that had an autistic daughter and said he wants to run a show for autism and donate all the money to autism. And you know, basically he just took all the money and the check to Paradise Alley bounced. And you know, since I did graduate law school and pass the bar in 2012, I knew what the protocol was on a bounce check, and I sent him certified mail, and I gave him ample opportunity to make good for it, and he just ignored everything. So I had no choice but to go to the East Haven Police, and that gentleman's paying restitution now. Other than that, every single show that we've run has been successful for a charity. We love the town of East Haven. East Haven has been so gracious to us, so good to us. The town hall, East Haven High School, Malillo, the Board of Education has been very kind to us. We've been up to town meetings several times at East Haven High School on that first Tuesday of the month, and they've been nothing but gracious to us and supportive. I've said this on other shows on the air that PAPW would be in dire straits and in a lot of trouble without one guy, and that one guy is Louis Payne. If Louis Payne wasn't there to extend his help to us, we would be in a lot of trouble. Well, I guess we would run straight wrestling shows, but for charities to make any money, it would be pretty hard. So, a big thanks to Louis Payne for that. He really takes care of us, and he's a gentleman, and he's very helpful, and we really appreciate that from Louis.
Definitely.
So instead of just the violence that so many people associate with the wrestling world, then Mario, you're actually saying that your company does a great job of reaching out and helping these different charities, and is kid friendly, so viewers, spectators don't have to worry about what their kids are going to see.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've booked a few outside talent over the past couple of years, and if they conducted themselves below our standards, they were never booked on another show again. So, we just don't go for stuff like that. Listen. I see some independent wrestling, and I have a lot of respect for independent wrestlers because they go out there and they leave it all in the ring. They give 100%, and they get paid almost nothing. And if you told them to show up for nothing, they probably still would, because that's how much they love what they're doing. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for them. But some of the things I see, would never be accepted in the Paradise Alley. It's just, you never need to take that risk. When I was in wrestling back in the 80s, the objective was don't get hurt. And it seems like the more that wrestling goes forward in the future, the more risks these people are taking with their bodies. And that's not necessarily a good thing.
Right.
So we in order to really understand it, wrestling, you have to tell a story in a very creative way where the fans catch on to it and they're really enjoying it, and you don't have to go through a table, and you don't have to, bleed down to your boots, and you don't have to swear or make vulgar gestures. That's what Paul Roma is there for. Paul, for example, we have the House of Pain. They're our tag team champions. And they were bad guys, and they really enjoyed being bad guys. And Roma said, well, now I'm going to turn you into good guys.
Right.
And they balked a little bit, but the way Roma set it up was the House of Pain didn't come in and save somebody that was getting brutally beaten and bloodied, and they came in and beat the other guys up and saved. That's not the way it happened. This is a good example of Rated G. Roma simply said, well, I think it was one of their kids, one of the wrestlers' kids, they're going to have a bag of popcorn. The people that the House of Pain were going to wrestle they were going to knock the bag of popcorn out of the kid's hand.
Right.
And then Big Daddy Dre comes out, who's one of the House of Pain, goes to the concession stand, gets another bag of popcorn and gives it back to the kid. Then they go in and beat the bad guys. And that bag of popcorn transitioned the House of Pain from bad guys to good guys. You just have to be very intelligent when it comes to what I call the psychology of pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And Roma's a master at the psychology of pro wrestling. Of course, he was taught by the legends back in the 80s,
mm-hmm.
as well as I was. So you really have to be creative,
right.
smart, and you have to do it in a way that people are like Roma says, like the people are going to get it.
Right. It's something fresh. I mean, you're always seeing, like you said, one guy's getting beaten down by the heels, and then all of a sudden the other team comes in, doesn't feel like they want to take it, and
right.
Or in a situation with a tag team where somebody turns on somebody else,
right.
and now that person's good.
Right. They get hit with the belt. They're bleeding all over the place. It's just,
There's other ways to do it.
Yeah. You know what? Instead of doing it with all that, we did it with Roma did it with a bag of popcorn. You know what I mean? So, we try to keep it as kid friendly as possible. The most important thing is being involved with East Haven, the community of East Haven, the people of East Haven. We really, really enjoy being here. I mean, this is our home, and now for me personally, it's my home. I've worked for a law firm for 22 years, and that's on Hemingway. You know what I mean? So both of my jobs, working for that law firm, my wrestling school, and my home, is in East Haven. And I came over from Guilford, and it's quite a different atmosphere.
Right.
And
not a long distance, but it's a different.
No, it's a big difference.
Right.
Not that Guilford's a bad town. I like living in Guilford too, but it doesn't hurt that my name ends in a vowel, so I kind of feel I feel more at home.
Right.
But it's funny because if you go to a Stop and Shop in West Haven, or you go to Stop and Shop in Branford, you see things that you don't see in East Haven because they actually target the Italian Americans, the market for the Italian Americans in East Haven. So it makes me chuckle, but at the same time I appreciate it. East Haven is the place for me. And Big Steve Tracy just became a city councilman, and
right.
We've known each other for in another couple of weeks will be 32 years, and he owns a bail bonds company that's also in East Haven. He lives in East Haven, obviously, and so Paradise Alley has East Haven roots in it, and it's an East Haven company, and we're really proud to be here and serve the community as much as we possibly can. I mean, East Haven really has to take advantage of that, right? Right down to personal appearances. I mean, I before we did our show at for Malillo, at Malillo last year, I mean, it was Sergeant Murray went to all the middle schools, and other guys went with the belts, and guys like Sergeant Murray and Big Jim Anderson, you say, hey, we want you to go see the kids. They're there in a heartbeat, So, we could be used for other things in East Haven, too. All you have to do is pick up the phone, and whether it's to go to a function or to represent the town somewhere, our etiquette is very good. I know pro wrestlers are a lot of times are looked at as, foot-thumping people with IQs of 3, but I promise you, we're a lot more than
Right. But every time the mainstream media talks about wrestling, it's always in the negative.
Well, listen,
or mostly.
Just for a minute, let's talk about Vince McMahon.
Okay.
All right. Who isn't involved a lot these days, but back when all the bad stuff went down, from the steroids to the social drugs to the murder, suicides, the deaths, other scandals. He was under a lot of scrutiny, and you got to remember that, it's like he's the CEO of the WWE,
Right.
and he's got a lot of people underneath him, hundreds that he depends on. He can't keep his eyes on everything. So a lot of things did happen to him that put a negative light on pro wrestling.
Right.
But how is he able to? It's like being the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company with 100,000 employees. You put out a memo that you're going to be drug tested every 6 months, but you can't go home with those people and say, hey, remember now, don't do those.
Well, right.
So it's like, he did the best he could. I think he had a good product back in the 80s, and he put it forward very well, and he promoted it very well. And there are a lot of negative things out there about pro wrestling. The hardest thing in the world is to do a fundraiser, and the people buy the tickets because they're a part of that charity, and they've never watched wrestling on TV, and they've never been to a live wrestling show in their life.
Right.
Now, after the first match comes back to the dressing room, they go, that's a tough crowd. Because you can get wrestling fans to pop because they're wrestling fans. But when you're not a wrestling fan and you're there just to support the cause, it could be a pretty rough night sometimes.
But there's a lot of positive things that come out of wrestling.
Listen, and that's all we're trying to do at Paradise Alley is give a positive experience. And knock on wood, there's not one time we did a fundraiser where as I call the client, looked at me and said, gee, I'm really disappointed. Everybody looked at me and shook my hand with both hands and said, thank you so much. And that's what I do for the company. We have departments, and my department is to book the venues and deal with the charities and, make agreements with the charities, make sure the tickets are printed up, the posters, talk to Louis Payne, make sure everything's in order, get the event insurance, just all the business end of Paradise Alley. And then Roma runs the production part of the company. And then Paul Perez is the event coordinator of the company. And Big Steve's just he's just a big guy in back.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's
just watches it all.
No, right. He's the big guy in back because you know what? He's the biggest financial supporter of Paradise Alley. So, without him, it wouldn't exist. It's his ring. Those are his. With the chairs you sit in at ringside, those are his chairs. It's his trailer. We haul the wrestling ring in. So, he definitely is the big guy. He is the Vince McMahon, if you will, of Paradise Alley. So, we try to make it as positive as possible and raise as much money as possible for the charities that we put on wrestling shows for.
Now, if somebody attends one of the charity shows, which you guys do a wonderful job of putting on, Mario, and their son, their daughter, so forth, says, gee, Mom, Dad, I want to get involved in that. How do they go about contacting you and doing that?
Well, we have several websites they can go on if they're interested in being a wrestler, a referee, a manager, a valet. We're at 662 Co Avenue, right behind our Oasis Diner. We're there. They're there right now. Saturday mornings, Wednesday nights. I teach Monday nights. I teach the beginners. I'm the novice instructor because we're very honest at Paradise Alley, brutally honest. And if people look up Mario Mancini on YouTube, you're going to find out one thing. I lost every match and I fell a lot. So I am an absolute expert in taking bumps, hitting turnbuckles, ropes. When I say take a bump, that means falling on my back, taking a hip toss, taking a beel from the corner, body slam. So you start out your wrestling 101 with me, and once I see that you got all of that down, the basics, if you will, the foundation of a professional wrestler, then I hand you over to Roma on Wednesdays and Saturdays. He starts building the house from the foundation after the foundation I built. Roma, he started off with SD Jones as the tag team partner. He did what I did for a short period of time. Then they put him with SD Jones. Then they put him with Jimmy Powers. They were the Young Stallions. Then finally they put him with Hercules Hernandez as Power and Glory, who actually a tag team in the WWE at the time that were in contention for the tag team titles. Meaning they were one of the top tag teams in the WWE at the time. He left the WWE. He went to the WCW, became one of Ric Flair's Four Horsemen, became tag team champions with Paul Orndorff and tag team champions with Arn Anderson. Then he went over to Germany and became European heavyweight champion. So, needless to say...
Credentials.
Yeah, and he was in 3 WrestleManias. So, I've never been in a WrestleMania. He was in 3 of them.
They don't pick anybody to be a horseman, either.
Right. So, it's like Mr. Roma had quite more of an illustrious career than I did. It's like I explained to the students, they're a little hard-headed. I said, listen, if you want to get a chill, think of the millions and millions of people in this world, and then go to each WrestleMania and count how many wrestlers participated in that event. And Paul Roma was a member of that event 3 times. They say, I never forget watching Dick Cavett back in the late 70s, early 80s. He had a show on HBO, and he had a show about baseball. And I remember when I was a kid, he was looking into the camera, and he said, once asked, what are the chances of my child playing Major League Baseball? And the answer was, your child has a better chance of going to the NASA program and actually walking on the moon than playing Major League Baseball. And I think about how many guys are on the roster, and especially an expanded roster, during the fall on the baseball team. And for God's sakes, that wrestling roster for WrestleMania is even shorter than that.
Well, our time's up. Looks like, wow.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Happy holidays. I have 8 cheesecakes to make next week. 8.
9.
8 cheesecakes.
8 cheesecakes.
You're having a big party.
No, people just requested them,
That's it, because he makes cheesecakes besides help out with the wrestling school.
Well, yeah. Some I bring over to Nancy's house. We sit at her breakfast nook. It's the confessional.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays.